Still not
Yeah,
obvious.
played with confidence, King G5. I feel like this is a moment where MVL needs to be quite careful. King E2, I don't think we can actually grab that pawn on F5. So, this is more of a rook to F4 move, maybe in reaction, and just kind of hold on.
Yeah, just wait and maintain the fortress. And Magnus reacted slightly. I think he was a bit frustrated, but looks like neither side can improve their position right now. And okay, we'll see. Everything fizzle out. King versus king. It's a draw in game two.
Yeah, wow. What a weird result. Like to get to a draw that quickly, I think maybe both players thought there was more in it than that. But MVL looking calm, cool, collected. He's already left the chair. He's happy to just walk out of that one with a draw.
Yeah, he's at least on the scoreboard. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave under a but he simply cannot afford to lose this next game, as you say. He has black. I think a draw isn't the worst result, so Maxime doesn't need to go all out now. He will get white in the final game if it does kind of extend to kind of go the full to that fourth point. And yeah, I think just playing his normal stuff would make a lot of sense here. If Magnus does the same as he did in the earlier game, then maybe some questions, Aman. But okay, he switches things up. Magnus this time with D4 this time.
Yeah, I've actually noticed that as a trend. If a player has a successful game against their opponent, they're actually the one that doesn't repeat because, well, they know that, of course, who has been looking at that during the break the most? It's MVL. So, why play and repeat something that your opponent now has just checked? Instead, play something completely different and hope to get that, same good start that you had in game one.
Yeah, and Maxime going back to basics. He's playing his childhood favorite, the opening that kind of he built a career on. I'm going to say Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, the Grunfeld defense, and they've had so many tussles in this exact opening throughout the years. I can count at least 15, 20 games just off the top of my memory that they've fought it out in mainline Grunfelds. And okay, Magnus gives a check with his bishop, a very trendy line. Aman, do you think going into a main like this, main line like this, who do you think it's going to favor?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was seeing the Grunfeld on the board here, and I was thinking to myself, wow, this is an opening I just really haven't seen at any level, let alone the top level, as much recently. I feel like it's kind of fallen out of favor. There's just openings that you can put less effort in and maybe have even better results. There's kind of more yield. And it's an opening that he knows so well. So it almost is such a shame to have that knowledge go to waste. So it's nice to see that he's bringing it back here. But I will say, one of those openings that has that reputation. It's old. The players know it. It's tried and true. I feel like there's nothing new here that Magnus is going to be surprised by. So it doesn't feel like an overly ambitious decision. Still, he knows it better than almost anyone in the world. So he's the guy that you want playing it.
Yeah, that's right. And I don't think he should be too worried, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave here. This bishop b5 line where white often does end up taking the black knight just to relieve some pressure on the center. It does have a bit of a drawish reputation, so maybe Magnus playing it a bit conservatively here. And yeah, nice to see Maxime bring it back, as you say. He's kind of gone away from it. He wants to be less predictable, understandably, less of a kind of sitting duck in the opening,
Right.
playing all these Queen's Gambit accepted lines. But nice to see him going back to what he knows best. And okay, Magnus going for it now, not playing the safest. He steps forward with his pawn here.
Yeah, pawn to d5, and I mean knight to e5 is the clear reaction. I mean, knight into the center of the board. The knight on f3 is pinned, and there could even be a very, very forcing line with bishop back to e2 and lots of trades on this f3 square. The bishop on g7 would be eyeballing the c3 pawn, and I've just seen a lot of these games, David, just really liquidate, and everything seems to disappear all at once.
Yeah, looking into the future, crystal ball out. I like it. And I think very likely as well. Not sure Maxim can keep the tension too long. There's a big question here, like whether you take with the bishop or the knight. Maybe knight more forcing bishop takes. There is an outside chance of white taking back with the pawn. I know it looks ugly, but if you get a bit more time, you could kick back the the black knight from the center and start expanding with white. So yeah, well, let's see what mood Maxime is in here, but definitely in his comfort zone.
Right. And where do you think Magnus's head is at between those two decisions? If we see a capture on f3, is he looking to be ambitious with g takes, or is he just fine to play it safe and, say, look, Maxime hasn't posed too much danger to me to match so far. So why don't I just keep going like this? Because another draw in the final game will win the match.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to recent history. He actually takes with the knight, Maxime. I think more likely that pawn would have captured if there'd been an imbalance like the bishop pair. But yeah, it would have been interesting, Magnus's approach there. But I'm just looking back in the World Blitz Championship, the infamous one that was shared between Magnus and Nepo. Magnus was 2 points up, but he still played for a win. He still went for it. So I think that's just his mindset these days. Interesting tactic, by the way, for everyone at home. Bishop takes pawn was played last move because there was an attacking against the black bishop, and just like you predicted, everything's liquidating now.
Yeah, the eval bar is right around the middle, right there, 0.00, and there's just not much in this game. I will say that it's kind of nice to have that advanced central pawn on d5, which can be nicely supported by the rooks, but that's pretty much it. In an endgame, David, those queenside pawns are actually very valuable. So it's I wouldn't say that there's just one thing that's better than the other. It just depends on the nature of the position.
Yeah, still plenty of life left. Like we shouldn't kind of guarantee that this is going to fizzle out to equality, especially while the queens remain on the board. But yeah, white's pressure along this diagonal can be slightly uncomfortable for black, I guess. The black queen a bit tied down there. And it still takes white ages, though, to advance in the center. So all things being level, this should be kind of a position where both sides are happy. Magnus looks like he's eating again. I'm pretty sure I saw him have lunch earlier, but yeah, he was snacking on something there. And yeah, just plays a very calm improvement move there. The white king has some breathing space.
Yeah, my feeling about these positions is really that if the queens are on the board, that it would favor white. And if the queens were off the board, you start to get into positions where those queenside pawns on a7 and b6 matter a lot more. So I'm interested to see if that's how things play out. Definitely if the rooks are on the board, that's along the same line as the queens. I feel like the more pieces in general, white is kind of happier, and more those pieces disappear, we get to a pure endgame. I think MVL would have better chances.
Yeah, and talking of MVL's chances, he played a very committal move, showing he's not happy to just kind of settle in for a dull equality. He pushed his pawn forward to f5, and yeah, now the black king a bit airy, but the black rook a lot more potential. And he did have to cede the c file in the process. And Magnus has his eyes on maybe planting his rook on e6. Magnus smiling, right, maybe liking his position now.
Yeah, I wonder what that's about. I can say that I've probably never looked at my position and really just smiled. So I wonder if it's about the chess, or you just thought of something.
Same. I'm normally crying when I look at my position, just trying to hide the pain, the hurt. But yeah, Magnus, I must admit, I like this development for white just because there's so few pieces on the board that any attack is unlikely. And just the fact he's been able to post up a really strong rook here. And if there are simplifications, maybe black has more weaknesses than white.
Right, and it's also an important question. When the f file opens up, who's it actually going to favor? Because I could definitely see, f takes e4, queen takes e4. If white just steps out of things with king g2 and pawn to f4, there's just nothing happening down the f file at all. So bishop d6 and MVL just, can't really be playing for any type of advantage here anymore, David.
Yeah, and Magnus has a big decision. I agree. It's definitely black fighting for equality. Bishop takes bishop, much safer. Bishop to b2, like something on this diagonal just feels like that might be the more ambitious choice here. Maybe also the more risky. If the queens ever come off, then black's bishop is super strong in an endgame. Maybe there would be weak pawns for black to chase. He trades off Magnus, potentially kind of affected by the match situation, and he plays h4. Magnus always plays h4 every game, so slight advantage for white here.
Yeah, h4 is the move lately in the current trend of chess that is always good in any position at any time, and no exception here. I thought that he would consider queen to e6 check, getting the queens off the board, and rook takes d6. Is that available?
Yes. I don't see why not.
We both have a question mark at the end of our sentences here. We're as quizzical as Magnus probably is right now.
It's it's because it's too. I'm not going to say too obvious, but it's. I mean, it's there. It's a pawn hanging, and it's a counterattack against the black queen. It's like a very straightforward tactic. Does MVL want to go into a rook endgame, uh, and then maybe bring the black rook across and go for some pawns?
Right.
Tasty
I mean,
does win a pawn for white,
at this point, David, it's not whether he wants to, because he might have to. So whether he intended this or not, definitely given a question mark here by the engine. And it's looking like Magnus is kind of slowly coming to terms that Rook D6 is just available, and that has to be a bit of a blunder there.
Yeah, and I've just turned on the engine for the first time today, and it did confirm that this is a winning advantage for white. It's Rook takes d6 was the only way, but it was a very natural way. It's a simple deflection tactic. Queen for queen there, and white not sure how to convert this advantage in the smoothest way, but simply a clear pawn. And you mentioned the queenside majority. White could chop off a pawn and kind of simplify things. I'm not sure you want to at this point. Maybe better to keep your options open. But either way, I don't think black's pawns are quick enough here, man.
Yeah, there's a big problem here. The first issue is that the king on g8 is cut off by the white rook. And then the second one is that the white king can just come up and bother the rook on d4 and just move up the board. King e4, king e5, maybe king f6 for a checkmate threat. If not, just assist the pawn. I'm with you. This looks completely winning and just kind of speaks to today's form for MVL, just not being good enough.
Yeah, just something was a bit off. Just that decision to trade bishops, maybe that's where it began, or maybe it was all with f5, that move earlier, just breaking out. That indecision whether to just sit tight, be happy with a draw, or to play for a win. Of course, the day started badly, and he was always up against it from that moment. But yeah, this is odd to see. And Magnus is spoilt for choice. He actually saves this pawn first of all. He's allowing the f2 pawn to drop, but then I think he'll proceed with that plan you mentioned, just push in the center. White's got an active king and an extra pawn. That's normally more than enough in a rook endgame.
Exactly. Yeah, there's really no way that I can see to save this. Also, just how much time the players have. This isn't something where you're going to be messing up because you're moving too quickly. All the time in the world to just get these moves right.
Yeah, and the bar is sky high. I think Magnus simply actually has a threat here to start pushing his d pawn. Maybe he'll just take a step back and grab black's pawn first. No, he advances. Big threat to give a check and then just run through and promote. So black has to stop that.
Yeah, and the b pawn is for the taking, but there's really no rush to do so. I think the black king being cut off by the rook on the 7th rank is also very powerful. So he just wants to leave it there as long as possible. But maybe when black's pawn gets up to b3, he might grab it then.
Exactly. I mean, he can take this one. He can maybe even take the other one. I'm not sure. Or he can just advance his king and kind of continue threatening. There we go. He drops back, takes a timeout. And active king, extra pawn. Normally you need two things in a rook endgame, right? You need to be 2 pawns up, or you need an active piece and an extra pawn, or 2 weaknesses to hit on. But here Magnus has everything.
Exactly. Yeah, everything. The king is more advanced. The black king has nowhere to go. You can set up your king kind of in front of your pawn here. Kind of heading to the d7 square. And at the end of the day, you can also give up that d pawn and kind of trade it off for maybe the 2 pawns on the king side instead. So you have every choice in front of you.
Yeah, he zigzags his way in. He's going to hide in front of his own pawn. And I think the kingside pawns here are just totally irrelevant. White is going to give a check now, cut the black king off even further.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he's just powerless here, MVL, to stop the inevitable. Once you give a check, you've already actually built a bridge. And for those of you at home familiar with the Lucina position, you normally need your rook, the white rook, to kind of guard checks from behind when the king eventually pokes its head out and starts kind of coming out from in front of its own pawn. This one, it's ready-made for him, Aman. It's a clearly winning position now for Magnus. This could be it.
Yep. And he already has this worked out. You mentioned the rook is already perfectly placed. Rook f4 and king e7 will be just perfect bridge building. As you said, he goes rook d4. He's got it done his own way. He's building the bridge first, and I don't think that there's any way for MVL to keep fighting here. And what a tough exit for him, and Magnus Carlsen, your winner.
There we go. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave resigns. Magnus Carlsen takes it in 3. 2.5 today, winning both of his white games in very, very smooth style. Deserving winner, Aman. I don't think we can argue with that. But it wasn't the fight we were wanting. It wasn't down to the wire in the end. It was just Magnus giving us a textbook, just showing us all his skills in the end game, but also with that checkmate in the first game.
Exactly. Yeah, the chess.com class